Good morning. Today, I wanted to look at some Zen poetry. Um, Roshi Ao gave me this book, The Complete Cold Mountain, and it's a collection of poems by a famous Zen hermit from ancient China, Hanshan. And it's been interesting looking at some of these. The first eight or so, they're kind of short. But the first eight are interesting because you really get us, he's really kind of telling us who is he and what is his practice. So just kind of want to focus there a little bit. Um, Now, of course, Hanshan translates to cold mountain. So right as the tradition was then, right? You all the Zen practitioners, all many of the Zen practitioners would find a little mountain, and that would be their home. And they were often named after the mountain. There aren't many mountains in Melbourne, and the Pineda Causeway Hermit just doesn't have the same ring to it. But so this is Hanshan, Cold Mountain, and this is written by Kazuaki, Tanahashi, and Peter Levitt. And um, I don't know if they're officially Roshis, but I think of them as Roshis. I don't know Tanahashi Roshi, but I do see him quite a bit at Upaya, the Zen monastery in New Mexico. And often what you'll see him teaching is Japanese calligraphy, or he'll teach Zen through the arts in a lot of ways. Peter Levitt, I do know. I've gotten a chance to meet him through the Lay Zen Teachers Association. That's actually where Roshi Al is right now. They're up in, I think, Seattle, kind of that part of the country. But we've got lay Zen teachers from Canada, North American continent primarily, all coming together and talking. And Peter is typically there, particularly when we're up there, because he lives up in Canada, kind of that neck of the woods. Wonderful, sweet man, poet, prolific writer, does a lot of translations, working with other folks that are really diving into the old Chinese. And so this is a case where they have translated all the poems from Hanshan. And so I'm going to take a lot from the books and then we'll just kind of talk about them. But so we'll kind of start off here. So let's see. Hanshan's poems are highly revered in the Zen tradition. Hakuin, he was the person credited with reinvigorating the Rinzai school of Zen. Hakuin saw Hanshan as an ideal among meditation practitioners. Of course, this ideal, right? He's living as a hermit on top of the mountain. He had his little garden. He'd write his poetry. Hakuin characterizes one of Hanshan's poems as expressing an extremely profound aspect of mountain dwelling in retreat with high leisure. There's something about that, right? It's like this profound practice, but yet there's this ease. And that resonates with me. I don't know if I've achieved that yet. but but there's something about you really have to throw yourself into this practice, right? It's a you get out what you put in kind of practice. But at the same time, you don't miss the flowers, don't miss your life, don't miss the relationships. And so there's a balance between really throwing yourself in and this ease. And Hakuin says Hanshan kind of exhibits that. Um, and apparently his poems are very highly regarded. So there's a legend that the great Chinese poet Dafu, or Dufu, took a glance at Hanshan's poems and tied his tongue, meaning that he shut up, right? He didn't. And then later, Huang Shenggu, another renowned poet and calligrapher, was asked by his Zen master to compose a poem after Hanshan. And Shenggu tried as much as he could, but was unable to get a phrase. He confessed Even if I read and try to compose for 10 more years or in my next lifetime, I won't be able to write like Hanshan. So, so very highly regarded. And I found very accessible. So I do recommend this book, particularly if you like poetry. They're just short little poems, short little paragraphs. Um, Hanshin had a companion, Shide, Shide. I don't know if my Japanese pronunciation is accurate, but I don't know if this was more legendary or if he really had a companion, or for that matter, if Hanshin is legendary or real. It's really difficult to tell because these stories are so old. But he's often portrayed in paintings since around the Song Dynasty in China, with him and Shide together. And it's a little difficult to see, but there's a kind of an old a drawing of him and Shide, and they're often shown with very shaggy hair, kind of these, I don't know, accentuated uh, smiles. It's almost like they're trying to, I don't know, bring out some characteristics where they don't even quite look human anymore. It's really interesting. Yeah, and throughout the centuries, painters seem to engage in a competition to conjure ever more mystical image of these two mountain figures. So Shide and Hanshin. And Hanshin, or Cold Mountain, is what he calls himself. It's a place where he lives. Um, but you'll see in the poems that it's also a state of mind. A lot of Zen poetry tends to have multiple meanings. And so you can read these first few poems. I think I'll do the first eight. Those are kind of the introduction, if you will, to Hanshin. And you can read that as he's introducing himself and how he lives. But at another level, he's really poking at the practice, poking at enlightenment, poking at understanding. Um, so you'll kind of see that as we go through these. Yeah, and being a lone dweller in the mountain, Hanshin followed the path of Taoism to its extremity. No activity as ultimate activity, being in accord with the flow of nature with ease, freedom from care, and the joy of quietude. He reads the Taoist based text, Virtue of the Way, attributed to Lao Tzu, which is full of paradox and enigma. And he's said to have used sorcerer's herbs for healing, for longevity. Um, and So the legend goes he was trying to become immortal. I don't know if he was successful. Maybe he's still sitting on the mountain. So, but right in China, remember, we had Taoism, Indian Buddhism coming in, and they kind of blend, and that becomes Zen or Chan. And in China, there were different flavors of, I'll say, native traditions and religions that would often bleed in, like sorceress incantations occasionally. So now we just have our rituals. We ring our gongs. All right, so let's look at the poem. So listen to this first time through, just as Cold Mountain Hanshin introducing himself. You may ask the way to Cold Mountain, but the road does not go through. In summer, the ice has not yet melted. The morning sun remains hidden in mist. How can you get here like I did? Our minds are not the same. When your mind becomes like mine, you will get here too. And you can kind of see he's not just talking about himself, he's kind of talking about the way. Um, like the road does not go through. I feel that. uh, I love this practice, but I think early on you have to get or let go of this idea that I'm going to get that. I'm going to I'm going to be enlightened, quote unquote. And I think we all have awakening experiences and we all touch upon it. I don't know if we can ever quite grasp it, right? The road does not go through. Um, Summer, the ice is not yet melted. The morning, the sun remains hidden. How do you get here? Our minds are not the same. And it's interesting at different points along my own practice paths, um, looking back at where I started from and how radically different I really am. Um, when I started, I was a seeker, right? I was struggling. I was struggling with anxiety at the time, actually, and I needed something. So I was searching, right? I was searching for that path. I was trying to melt the ice, push away the mist, right? See the sun, find my way. Um, but in a lot of ways, I had to let go of that. It was kind of just a change that happens over time. When your mind becomes like mine, you will get here too. So I thought that was a beautiful kind of introduction. Um, and then the next one, no matter how high you climb Cold Mountain Road, the way to Cold Mountain never ends. The long valley is stacked with boulders, its shorelines wet with lush grass, slippery moss, regardless of rain, pine trees singing even without wind. Who can go beyond the entangled world to sit with me in the midst of white clouds? Who can go beyond the entangled world to sit with me in the midst of white clouds? What do we have? I mean, what is this world but an entangled world? Um, with our attachments and our delusions. I do so love my delusions. I have plenty of them. I seem to collect them. And then you discover them and you work with them, and some of them you set aside. There's always more. It's a never-ending supply. Same with attachments. So here we are. It is a very entangled. Can you look past that or transcend beyond that? Right. Sit with Hanshin in the midst of white clouds. Um, yeah, practice is a challenge. Practice can be a challenge. That's one of the things that I've kind of taken from this because it has a lot of imagery of things getting in the way, right? Long valley stacked with boulders, shoreline wet with lush grass. So it's kind of a yin yang, right? Boulders in a way, but yet it is beautiful. Slippery moss, regardless of rain. How often do we lose our footing? Yet the pine trees singing even without wind. It's kind of a back and forth there in his words that it's really, I found, I don't know, kind of called to me. Because as much as we struggle, there is a beauty in this struggle, in this world. Um, Third one. Amidst cliffs, I have made my home. The paths of birds are beyond human tracing. What is there beyond my garden? White clouds embracing dark stone. How many years have I lived in this place, watching the many changes of winter and spring? Let me say to those with cauldrons and chimes, there is no merit in your worthless reputation. So I read that one. I thought, oh, those last two lines. Let me say to those with cauldrons and chimes, there's no merit in your worthless reputation. That's me, right? Who's the one ringing the gong? That's me. Leading the ritual? That's me. And so that one really kind of jumped out at me. I kind of chuckled really when I saw that because what is this practice but a collection of or the nuts and bolts of the practice, right? It's a collection of little rituals, and we don't have a lot of rituals because we have a fairly um, relaxed group, but we do have our rituals. And to me, what really jumped out is, are you just going through the motion, right? Am I just ringing the gong because it's time to ring the gong, or is the gong ringing? There's just a difference when you really are present. and the rituals and the practices, I don't know, almost emerge. Um, it's difficult to put words to, but are you going through the motions? And I love the imagery here. What is there beside my garden? White clouds embracing dark stones. You can kind of imagine him at the top of the mountain. Kind of reminds me of Pikes Peak. I did go one time, and at the top there, you see kind of the stone and then nothing. Just the clouds, just the blue sky. Um, I don't think I'd do well as a hermit, but I could see myself, spending some time in a place like that. The fourth one, if you want to attain a peaceful life, settle down at Cold Mountain. Subtle breezes blow through mysterious pine. Listen closely. Sound is really good. Beneath it, someone with graying hair reads the Yellow Emperor and Laozi without ceasing. After 10 years, I can never return. I've even forgotten the way I came. So the beneath it, someone with graying hair reads the Yellow Emperor and Laozi without ceasing. So reading the Taoist literature, probably the virtue of the way. But he's been there so long that after 10 years, I can never return. I've even forgotten the way I came. Our practice changes us. I think back to that previous version of myself that was anxious. And I was anxious because I'd come out of the military into civilian world, and I didn't really do anything that complex or dangerous in the military. It was more of a cultural shift. And now I've got all these demands for my time, and you have to deliver, and you've got a team depending on you. And I was riddled with anxiety. Um, but it's funny, I look back now as I've even forgotten the way I came. The path from there to here was not a direct path. um, so many different practices we've done here, so many things that I've done other places. That growth, it's not a step by step, simple path. Um, and so when it feels like you don't know which way am I going to go next, that's okay. That's part of that. That's part of that process. Right? Sometimes we're stepping left, sometimes we're stepping right. Sometimes we trip and fall on our face. Um, but little by little, we make our way up the stone path, right? I've even forgotten the way that I came. And then 5, go ahead, make fun of the way to Cold Mountain. When there's not a trace of horse or where there's not a trace of horse or cart, it's hard to remember valley switchbacks below layer upon layer of so many peaks. Dew weeps on 1,000 kinds of grass, wind sings through the pine. Lost now on my path, shadow, tell me, which way should I go? This one really kind of calls out to me about this flow state. You'll hear Roshi Ao talk about a lot, right? Moment to moment, just flowing with that moment. And it really, what jumped out at me was don't know mine. Each moment, experiencing each moment for what it is. Now in the West, we really don't know mind. In the West, it's more of a must know mind because it's hard to run across somebody that doesn't have an opinion about everything. I find myself, I'll do this too, right? I'll catch myself. It's like, well, no, I don't know. And I don't have to make up an answer. How often do we feel the need to fill in the gaps? There's nothing wrong with a little mystery. Um, Actually, I kind of enjoy the mystery. Being a physicist, I like that there's a little mystery out there still that my dear physics has not yet discovered or described or written down or given you a formula for. Give it time, perhaps, but I think there will always be that mystery, and I love that mystery. So I'm okay with don't know, right? Both as the scientist and as the Zen practitioner. Little different perspectives, but I don't know. And that's exciting. And it's wonderful. 6, loot and books should fill your life. What can fame and money provide? Abandon your carriage and follow the wisdom of your wife. A humble cart is pulled by devoted children. Wind blows over barley drying on the ground. Water floods from the ponds stocked with fish. I often think of wrens that live peacefully on just one branch. I sent this little passage to my wife. She read it and said, yep, listen to your wife, make the kids do everything. Sounds good. So it's been approved. But the two lines that really jumped out to me is those last two. I often think of wrens that live peacefully on just one branch. Simplicity, right? And that was Hanshan. He was on his mountain. He had his garden, probably a simple shack. Right? Very simple. And I'll admit, I have more than one branch, right? I have a lot of branches in my life. How do I live peacefully? What does that mean? Do I have too many branches? There's a good question. Something I'll ponder perhaps after this talk. Two more. 7. My mind is like an autumn moon, glowing purely in clear blue abyss. Nothing compares to it. What could I possibly say? You're not so much here in Florida, but up north, when that autumn, that crisp air, and every once in a while, when the planets are just right, the celestial bodies are just right, you'll see the moon in daylight. Right? And that was kind of the first two lines here. My mind is like an autumn moon glowing purely in clear blue abyss. So rare, but just breathtaking when you can see the moon in daylight. What could I possibly say? I don't know. So, and then the last one. Once I moved to Cold Mountain, everything was at rest. No more useless, mixed up thinking. In idleness, I write my poems on stone walls, accepting whatever happens like an untied boat. So he's let go. This untied boat. So what does that mean for us? We're lay practitioners in our world. No, that untied boat. That's an image that I think I'll sit with for a while. So that's kind of the introduction, and it goes on. He has more, but they kind of go on to various topics, and I may from time to time kind of look through and see if I can find another thread to talk to. But I'll close with one last poem that kind of jumped out at me. When I first read this, I thought in terms of nowadays and social media, but I think it's a little different. This is Hanshin almost crying out, "Listen to me, right? Listen." Right? If Cold Mountain utters these words, no one will believe them. Honey is sweet for people to enjoy, but bitter bark keeps them away. Going along with people's feelings brings pleasure. Opposing their ideas sparks resentment. Just look at wooden puppets acting out their tragic scenes. So be the untethered boat and not the wooden puppet being pulled by the strings, I suppose.